Hello everyone, my name is Brent and I run a website called cmidtn.com that focuses on Middle Tennessee. But recently, my wife and I took a vacation to Tybee Island, and on our drive back home, we decided we wanted to drive through a lot of small towns between Tybee and back at home. And we ended up staying at the Fitzpatrick Hotel. After we booked a room and got settled in, then we learned it was haunted, and I'm gonna tell you about that story. I've kind of broken up this video into different sections. First, I'm gonna tell you the story about how we got this hotel and how I learned it was haunted. We're going to talk about the all of the ghost stories that are going along with this hotel. And then I'm going to show you pictures of the room and what it was like to stay here, because I know there are people that don't care about ghosts. They just want to see the architecture and know what it's like to stay in a hotel like this. And then finally, I'm going to show pictures from all over the hotel. I specifically came to Washington, Georgia, because I like the town square. It has a neat courthouse and a lovely town square. And while we were there, we decided to stop for dinner at this restaurant called Maddie's Game Room. And while we were there, we decided, hey, it's a pretty town. Let's spend the night here. We saw of course, the Fitzpatrick Hotel was the popular hotel in town, and so we called the phone number on the sign here and told them we wanted to book a room. There wasn't any answer to that. So we went to the other building located on the first floor. It was this ice cream store. And then we went back to the front entrance and we saw the sign. And so what had happened was because of the recent pandemic and social distancing, not a lot of people are going on vacation right now. And there's the sign on the door saying that the lobby was locked. And if we wanted to book a room, we have to do it online. And then after we do it online, we call their phone number. And so the phone number that you see in the picture here is the one on the sign, but the one below that, I kind of kept it hidden on purpose, is the lady who's the manager of the hotel's her personal cell phone. One thing I'll point out is if you look through the window there, there is a rack of postcards which you get for free by staying in the hotel. So the restaurant and the ice cream parlor are actually part of the building, and uh, this the hotel had a new owner purchase this in 2019, so just last year, and so it's a brand new restaurant, brand new ice cream store. I think it sold for $2.2 million. But because of no one booking hotels right now, they pretty much had to lay off all their staff, and once we finally got a hold of the manager, it was the same lady who was our waitress in the restaurant. And so when she let us in, she didn't even have a chance to clean our room yet because we had just booked it about 30 minutes before. So while we were booking the room, uh, my wife and I walked all over the hotel, took lots of pictures, and we're going to see all those at the end. Once our room was finally available to us, we went in there and I wrote a family member saying, hey, look at this neat old hotel from 1898 that we're staying in. And she lives in Atlanta, which is just about an hour and a half away. And she said, oh, wait a second, what room are you staying in? And I wrote her back and I said, I'm in room 100. And she said, okay, thank goodness, you're probably safe. And then she sent me an article from a local media that had mentioned room 307 of this hotel was haunted. And it was a pretty short article. It didn't have a chance to go into the detail of everything, all of the legends of this hotel. But room 307 is going to be on the top floor, and it's the room on the far left. It has kind of a rounded corner right there. I believe that's called a turret. And the two windows to the right of that make up room 307. Because there was no one else on duty and the one employee, the manager, had to get back to waitressing, um, and since all the doors were locked, the only people in the hotel at the time were the visitors, the guests, and that was my wife and I, and the people who booked room 305. You see, the bay window on the third floor is the room next to the haunted room, and so that's where the other visitors were staying in this hotel. And so there were only four people in the whole place, plus all the people in the restaurant who eventually left when the restaurant closed down for the night. But I didn't, because the article is brief, I didn't have a chance to learn about all of the other legends until I got back home and was able to do a lot more research on the hotel. But we'll talk about all of those as we look through some other pictures. Now, one thing I'm going to mention is my camera picked up a lot of strange green lights. Now, in this picture right here, over on the right, there is a green circle, and that's because sunlight is hitting on the inside of the lens, and that is a fairly common problem if the sun is in front of you when you're taking a problem. But I'm going to point out some other pictures that I took that had some strange things to it. It could be a ghost. I'm going to say it's probably not because I'm more of a skeptic, but I'll let you decide that. As we look through a lot of these pictures, I'll tell you about um, I'll show you all the pictures that had some of these strange green lights in them. I'll also point out that my wife and I didn't see anything paranormal. Uh, I heard a couple of weird noises from our room. I'll tell you about them a little bit later. My wife slept through those noises, so that's kind of our personal haunted experience. Now, no haunted building is going to be complete without the spooky looking portrait where the eyes seem to be following you, and that's how I would describe this portrait. It was in the main lobby, and I believe this is the wife of one of the original Fitzpatrick brothers, who are the brothers who built this hotel. And so people claim that those two brothers are two of the spirits that are in this hotel. Now, some of the weirdness about the hotel is, first of all, the hotel was built on top of a graveyard. That is kind of strange to hear something like that, but uh, that was, I guess, not considered weird in the 1890s. Now, they did get rid of all of the gravestones, but they left all the bodies buried, and so they are all underneath the hotel. And so you could say there is a lost spirit that is eager to get out. There is a basement. I'll show you the door to the basement a little bit later. There is also a story that the previous owner, like I said, this sold in 2019, but the previous owner would not go into room 200 for whatever reason. I saw an interview with him saying that. There are a lot of sightings of a young girl wearing 1890s clothing that just frolics and kind of dances up and down these hallways that we will see. One of the better stories has to do with the ballroom, and this is the ballroom. There is the legend of Polly Barclay. Now, it is unusual in the 1890s that you would have a public execution for a female, but I believe she murdered someone, either her husband or her lover. I'm not completely sure of the story, but as the legend goes, before it was time for her public execution, she was waiting here in the ballroom in her fanciest dress because she thought the governor of Georgia was going to give her a pardon, and so she was waiting in here and kind of partied because she thought it was going to happen. And so, since that did not happen, since she was executed, they say that her spirit likes staying here in the ballroom. Now, since my wife and I stayed in room 100, that was directly below the ballroom, and I mentioned I heard a couple of weird sounds. One of those sounds was the sound of uh, I didn't know that this ghost story of Parley Barclay in the ballroom at the time, and it sounded like what I would call a shoe squeaking on a gym floor. And of course, this hotel has all wood floors, and so that could happen up here. Another thing that I heard several hours later was what sounded like a loud thump, and it would have sounded like someone making one loud bang on our door, except the sound came from directly above us, which again was here in this ballroom. Now, I mentioned earlier that the most talked about story has to do with room 307, and this is a picture from room 307. Now, because of the limited staff, they were not locking the doors of any of the guest rooms for the most part, except for I didn't try and go in the other room that someone was in, but I walked in this room before I knew it was haunted. And so this is the kind of the part that is in the rounded turret, and you see there are three windows here. And so according to legend, there was a guy that brought his wife into this hotel and stayed in this room, but also booked a room for his mistress. And that was not very wise. And because they found out about each other, the I forgot which was which, but one of the ladies pushed the other one out of this window, and she fell to the ground 2 stories below and died. And so apparently this room is now haunted by the spirit of the lady that was pushed out of this room. While I was there, I did take a picture outside of the room. This is kind of a view of the town square from that 3rd-story bedroom. One other picture of this room. I didn't intend really to get a selfie here, but uh, you can see the mirror there, and there are a lot of fireplaces in this hotel. And kind of in the reflection of the mirror is also the queen bed of that was in this room. So earlier I mentioned the green streaks that appeared in some of my photos, and the first one I noticed was in this picture, and room 307 is actually on the left side, kind of at the end of the hallway on the left, but there is kind of a green streak that's pointing into the closest room on the right. And I just thought that was strange. That looks completely different than the round circle that I usually get. And by the way, I usually don't see streaks like this on any of my other pictures. So take that for what you will. Maybe it's a ghost, maybe it's just weird lighting somehow that's causing this in my camera. Now, I will point out that the people in room 305 have their door open, and you can actually see the light coming out of their room into the hallway, kind of by the lamp that's on the table back there. I thought I'd want to point that out. So that's pretty much all the specific ghost stories that I want to talk about, and I'll sprinkle in some of those as we go through look some of the other pictures. But now we'll talk about just what it was like to stay in this hotel room. Now, my wife and I got room number 100. That's the only room on the ground floor because the ground floor also has the hotel and the ice cream shop. We booked this room because almost all of the rooms in this hotel only have queen beds. And when you're as large as I am, it's kind of tough to fit me and another person on a queen bed once we got used to a king bed. So we ended up picking the room that had 2 queen beds. So don't judge me, bro. But we've got the 2 bedroom here. Since it's on the ground floor, they also made this room uh, ADA compliant. And so there's a couple of different things about this room, but this was called the deluxe room because it has the 2 beds. Here's a view from kind of a different angle. I really like the red thing that I could sit on at the end of the bed on the left. You'll notice that On the right of the picture, there is a power cord plugged into the wall, and it actually goes to the red lamp between the beds up against that mirror. Here's a better picture of that lamp. We just liked a lot of the old furnishings that they put in this hotel. And here's an example of a dresser, another really cool lamp. There's the room phone and the kind of the ice bucket. And also like this desk. This furniture doesn't look like it's 120 years old, but it still was kind of neat. That's kind of a neat desk. One thing I thought was interesting was the rooms were very tall. I would say the room was probably 20 feet tall, and this door was very large and very heavy. And above the door were some windows that have been painted black. Otherwise, all kinds of light's going to get into your room from the rest of the hotel. Now, one thing I thought was interesting was this sign that was actually on the inside of the door about what you should do if there was a fire. I've never been in a hotel room that had anything that looked like this. And maybe it's just because this is an all-wood hotel that's 120 years old. Uh, I suppose there's a greater fire risk in such a room like this. Now, if we were trapped in room 100, we would just bust out a window and get out. But I thought this was interesting to read all of these uh, specialty fireproof features that it has at the very beginning and I mean at the very end, and all of these other what to do if you're trapped when the hotel's on fire. Here's a look at the bathroom, neat tile floor, and you can kind of see a reflection of the shower area. And since this was the ADA room, it did not have a handicapped bathroom so much, but in the closet there was a shower seat that you could sit on and put in here. I love the old-fashioned shower. I don't know if I'd ever seen anything like this. I'm so used to the pipe being buried behind the tile, but as you can see here, the water faucet connects to that pipe, which is just a straight pipe up, and the wide spray from that particular shower head. Now, one other picture from room 307. Every other room in the hotel had a clawfoot tub just like this one, also with the same kind of newer shower that was added to it. And of course, you've got the shower curtain that goes all around the tub. And so that would have been an interesting experience to shower in one of those. I have never done that before, but I guess I'm kind of glad that I didn't stay in room 307. For the people that like to keep your hotel soap because they look kind of neat, and I'll admit I'm someone that's just like that. Here is the fancy wrapper of the soap, and even better are all these shower bottles. I thought those were rather neat. Now, I included this picture because the windows were just as tall as the room, so I actually had to stand on the bed to reach the blinds cord to raise and lower them. But I really love the curtain here that had all the green and yellow tassels that were coming down from it. You'll notice at the top of the picture there is another little green streak that made it into this picture. One other thing I'll point out for the people that stay here is you do get a free breakfast. They don't actually cook it in the hotel like I've usually see at a restaurant, but if you go to the cafe, this is not the same cafe that they own that's part of the building because they don't do breakfast, but the cafe a couple of buildings down will give you a free breakfast to guests of the hotel. They also point out here that they offer drinks, coffee, tea, grits, and oatmeal. And I'll show you the breakfast room later on. Now that we've looked around the inside of room 100, I'm going to point out some features on the outside of the building, and probably the most distinctive feature is the rounded turret that you see here, and that is on the third floor and the second floor, so it is quite tall. And I don't know the names of any of these architectural features, but that is the dome that is on top of the turret. It got a little, maybe that's a lightning rod, or maybe it's just decorative on top of that. But then there's also a wrought iron little spot here, and maybe the second floor room used to have a balcony that they don't trust people walking on it anymore, but it has this, it looks like it could have been a balcony, but perhaps it's just a decoration, and it's got the wrought iron guardrail that goes around it. And then here we have the bay window that is in the next room over from the 307, so that's also 305 and the room below it. And then another distinctive feature is the name Fitzpatrick, which is actually carved into the brick on top of, at the very top there. It's lit up at night, and the bay windows have kind of these triangular shaped areas above them. And also the date of 1898 when the hotel was built. Moving around to the back of the hotel is a courtyard, and so you'll notice that there are a couple of doors that lead into the courtyard from public areas, and then the two windows between them are the two windows from room 100 that I stayed in. Then the other window is the breakfast room, but this picture had a lot of those little green streaks in them, and they're all pointing into our bedroom, which seems kind of ominous, but they probably correlate to some of the lights that are here in the patio. The only people I ever saw out here were waitresses who at the restaurant who were taking a break. Here is the main front door, and my wife waiting patiently for the manager to come let us in. And neat old light fixture that they have outside the front door. And here is the kind of the stonework with the walkway up to the front door. And now we're going to take a look at some pictures on the inside. There's a second entrance that was called the ladies' entrance. And if you are a guest of the hotel, you don't need to wait for the manager to let you in. They give you the code to the door lock on this second door. It's actually right next to the main entrance, but I didn't even see it when we first got here. But you walk in that door and you go up a few steps. And so these are the steps that you would go up. In the background, through the doorway, you'll see stairs going up to the second floor. We'll get to that a little bit later. Once you walk up those steps, there is kind of a little entranceway here with a nice little table and mirror and more of those green streaks. In the lobby, here's another fireplace, although they have covered it up. They also have a little trash can there and another mirror. This is the front desk. Now, the hotel itself was built in 1898, but it closed in the 1950s and actually remained dormant for about 50 years. So a lot of the features of the hotel are not original since there were 50 years of decay, but this wooden front desk is original to the hotel. Here's a little sitting area to the side of the front desk. And if you look to the chair on the left, there is a square thing on the floor. That is actually the door handle that leads into the basement. Now, I didn't even notice that when I was there, but I found videos of other people later who actually went down in there. I personally wouldn't recommend it. It looked like there wasn't much to see down there, but if you wanted to get up close and personal with the old, what used to be grave sites, that's how you would do it. This was a table in the breakfast area, so they have water and coffee, and at the end of the table there is the ice, I guess you'd call it the ice machine, sugar, salt packets, and also packets of oatmeal for people that just felt like they needed the midday snack. And also on the ground floor was this frosted window and old, I guess that's a chair right next to it. There is an elevator to the left of this picture that only goes up to the second floor. So you can get up to the second floor in the ballroom without, and all the rooms of the second floor without having to walk upstairs, but it will not take you to the third floor. So behind the front desk, I love the wooden arches that they put in here. And that is right next to the stairs. At the top of the steps, we see the door that is the entrance to the ballroom. And so now I'm on the second floor. The ballroom is right behind me. Room 200 that the previous owner would not go in is the door on the right. But my favorite feature of the whole hotel are the curved staircase that is here on the left. And here's showing the, I guess, the handrail that kind of hangs over the other stairs. But I love this view, and there is a little sitting area underneath the stairs, and the double doors that we see there on the map of the hotel, that was called the Parlor, and I tried to go in there. It's the kind of doors that actually, I forget the name of these, but they actually slide into the wall. But this room was locked, and I could not go in there. That was not a particular guest room. In the sitting area, they had this painting of a lady walking up the stairs. And here's a picture of the sitting area, a couple of pieces of furniture. And we also see portraits of George and Martha Washington. Since the town of Washington, Georgia was named after our first president, there is his portrait. As we go down the second floor hallway, we've got to look at some of the rooms. The second floor hallway and the third floor hallway look pretty much the same. There are 4 rooms on either side of the hallway, 4 facing the square and 4 facing the back of the hotel. And if I turn around at that spot, we see a second staircase that will take us up to the third floor that takes you up about halfway, then turn around and go up the other stairs. And there's a window where you can look out, and all you can see is the next building. But in room 207, this is the room below the haunted room, a very similar room. It has the 3 windows and a couple of chairs that can overlook the square. Also has a mirror over a fireplace and a queen bed. Now, when I go up my favorite staircase, you can look back on the hallway of the second floor. We've got room 200 there on the left, and at the end of the hallway is the ballroom, and the door next to the ballroom is the room for the staff where they do all the laundry and keep all the extra toiletries and things like that. Now we're looking on the third floor and walking down the hallway. The fancy staircase is at the end of this hallway, and room 305 is on the right. One interesting feature that I saw right here, and I'm not quite sure what this is. Maybe this is some kind of fireproof feature, but just a faucet in the middle of the hallway on the third floor. And I really don't know what that metal structure is. I guess it holds something. Maybe it holds brooms. I don't know. But if you know what that is, please let me know in the comments. Here is a kind of a map of what the third floor looks like, with the familiar red arrows telling you where to go in case of a fire. Room 307 with the turret, the rounded corner is, of course, shown in the bottom left corner. Now the third floor doesn't go all the way over the ballroom, but there is another small sitting area with these pieces of old furniture. And if I turn around, I can take a look down at the stairs that this is what I call my favorite stairway right there. So you can get a look of that from above. I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I did. I thought the features of this hotel were really nice, even without all the ghost stories. And the square itself is nice. I love the fountain that was right in front of the hotel. As I mentioned earlier, my name is Brent. I run a website where I upload a lot of photos of the Middle Tennessee area. But if you like the photos from the slideshow and you want to take a closer look, I'm going to upload this to my website, and I'll link to that down below. This picture, by the way, was the sitting area by the main entrance. If you're interested in other stories or vignettes, I recommend that you check out my blog. And there are other things that you might find interesting in the Middle Tennessee area and beyond, such as historic neon signs and train stations and courthouses. So feel free to check out the website. And I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you made it 31 minutes, I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. Bye.